But it's not just about drafting any kind of running back. You have to really do your homework, and this is the way that I would break it down. All right, guys, we are going over some draft strategies to help you out for the upcoming 2023 season. And the one we're going to be specifically going over is called robust running back draft strategy. Now, this strategy is an inverse of what you typically see with the 0 RB strategy, which is one that usually holds off on drafting running backs until much later to the draft. Now, with this strategy, it's not about drafting running backs for the sake of it. You have to really hone in on specific running backs. And in this video, I'm going to be going over all those specific details. I'm also going to go over the ideal lineup construction on how you want to actually build out your roster in this strategy. And then ultimately, I'm going to give you some running backs that I think would be great later on in the draft, implementing this strategy. And then lastly, I'm going to give you my 2 cents by not only telling you what I think, but also showing you a few examples of me implementing this strategy out in a few mock drafts. But hey, if we're meeting for the first time, my name is Ivan Herrera. I'm a husband, I'm a father, and I'm passionate about fantasy football. So let's get into it right away. And here's the thing, when it comes to the robust running back strategy, a lot of common misconceptions are that you just draft any kind of running back early on in the draft. However, the way that I would define this strategy is that you get a heavy amount of your draft capital early on and then invest it in the running back position. But it's not just about drafting any kind of running back. You have to really do your homework, and this is the way that I would break it down. And one of the first things that you want to analyze is the potential volume that a running back is projected to get. The second thing is you want to then identify workhorse running backs, which are ones that are heavily involved in their offenses. Because remember, in fantasy football, volume is king. And I know that talent obviously has its own space in this, but understanding the amount of volume that someone could potentially get in an offense is going to play a huge part on whether or not they can be successful in fantasy football. Now, when trying to assess on whether or not a running back is going to get volume in an offense, you want to look at a couple things. The first thing you want to analyze is the amount of snaps that they had in this offense the year prior. What were their rushing attempts, and were they targeted in the passing game as well? And of course, one little caveat you want to add in there as well is, was there anyone added in that running back room that may take touches away from this particular running back? And essentially, you want to focus on running backs that are going to be workhorses. And the first one that comes to mind, in my opinion, is Christian McCaffrey, someone that you know in their offensive system, not only are they going to be utilized in the running game, but they also provide high level abilities to catch the ball out of the backfield, which makes them very valuable with this strategy. Another running back that you can utilize as an archetype in this strategy would be a running back such as Derrick Henry, where you know they are going to be the main focal point, being that the offensive scheme that he is in is a run heavy offense. So now that we know we're looking to target workhorse running backs, another kind of running back that you want to target in this strategy is going to be running backs that could have big roles if the starting running back of that offense gets injured. If you are new to fantasy football, this kind of running back is known as a handcuff, and this handcuff could come in handy. And I'm going to give you 4 handcuffs that you should be targeting in 2023 to help you out in fantasy football. The first one is going to be AJ Dillon. Now, the reason why you want to target AJ Dillon is because he has been a top 20 RB in evaded tackles as well as juke rate. And if anything was to happen to Aaron Jones last season, Aaron Jones averaged about 12 rushing attempts to go along with 4 targets, which would make AJ Dillon a top option in those games that he would be filling in for Aaron Jones. Now, the next one is going to be Elijah Mitchell. Now, Elijah Mitchell broke out of the scene in 2021 when he had 963 yards to go along with 6 touchdowns, making him the RB14 in fantasy football that season. Now, last season, San Francisco traded for Christian McCaffrey, so now that naturally puts Elijah Mitchell as the backup in that offense. And if God forbid anything was to happen to Christian McCaffrey, we all know all that work would naturally go to Elijah Mitchell. And the reason why this is important is because Elijah Mitchell, since entering the league, has been a very efficient runner. In his first season, he actually averaged 4.7 yards per carry, and then even though he was injured last season, he actually averaged 6.2 yards per carry in 5 games. So not only would Mitchell get all this work if anything were to happen to Christian McCaffrey, but he also has been proven to be very efficient. This is just a recipe for success for Elijah Mitchell to be a potential handcuff for you to target in 2023. The next one is going to be Jamal Williams. Now, Jamal Williams is coming from Detroit now in New Orleans, and a lot of the talk was, of course, him now being the backup to Alvin Kamara. However, Alvin Kamara is facing facing some legal issues right now, and if anything were to happen as far as a suspension, Jamal Williams will now be the starter in that offense. In 2022, Jamal Williams was second in red zone touches and also was second in total touchdowns with 17. The fact that Jamal Williams could be in a position to actually be the starting running back in this offense to go along with where he's currently being drafted, I think is just a great model of success and someone that you should be targeting in 2023 as a running back in this strategy. I'm not saying that Jamal Williams is going to replicate the kind of success that he had in Detroit to New Orleans, but being that he's currently available later on in drafts and could be in a position to get a good amount of work, should be a good enough reason for you to draft him in 2023. And the fourth running back that I would target in this kind of situation would be running back Samaje Perine out of the Denver Broncos. If you know me, I love Javonte Williams. I think that this kid was really talented coming out of college, but unfortunately last season he had a really horrific knee injury. And even though there have been reports about him doing really well in his recovery and him wanting to run violently this upcoming season, I still have some reservations with a running back coming out of a major knee surgery just like his. And to add on top of that, Denver now has Sean Payton calling plays there, and he has proven that he can be very successful with two running backs. But if anything were to happen where Javonte Williams just isn't ready to go to begin the season, Samaje Perine is a more than capable running back to be successful in fantasy. Last season, from weeks 11 to week 13, he averaged 23.6 fantasy points as a starter when filling in for Joe Mixon. And here's something else too about Samaje Perine. He is an amazing pass blocker and could catch passes out of the backfield. And one more thing, Denver is actually facing the 6th easiest schedule for running backs in 2023. Now that we've identified the kind of running backs that we want to get in this strategy, now we're going to transition to the kind of wide receivers that you should be targeting. So a very simple tip here is you want to look for wide receivers that are going to be in efficient offenses. And just like we like to target running backs that are going to get good volume, we also want to target wide receivers that are projected to have a pretty good target share. When I implemented this strategy, one of the approaches I actually focused on was targeting not only, of course, a top running back in the beginning, but trying to see if I can get myself an elite wide receiver with that second or third round pick, depending on where I'm picking in the draft. Here are a few examples of me actually trying out this strategy. In this example, out of the first overall pick, so I went with Christian McCaffrey, and on the return, I actually ended up getting Najee Harris, and I also coupled him with Amon-Ra St. Brown. This not only secures me two solid workhorse running backs, but I'm also getting a feature wide receiver on a very prolific offense such as Detroit. And then so that way on the way back, I then was able to get two other running backs that I think are going to be really successful because of the volume that they're going to be getting. And that running back was Cam Akers as well as Dameon Pierce. So now that I have my 4 running backs in place, I feel pretty good on waiting to get my 5th running back much later, being that I've obviously gone really heavy with running back. And then on the way back, I ended up getting Mike Evans to go along with Justin Herbert at quarterback, and then I coupled it with 2 wide receivers back to back with Jordan Addison as well as Kadarius Toney, and then I ended up getting Pat Freiermuth as well as Rondé Moore, and then I ended up also investing in getting Kenneth Gainwell to be my 5th running back to round up my team, and I ended up getting a pretty good score of 97 out of 100, which is a pretty good grade in Fantasy Pros. In this other example, I picked out of the 6th overall pick, and Austin Eckler fell to me, so I ended up taking Austin Eckler, and then I invested in Josh Jacobs in the 2nd round, and then in that 3rd round I was able to get Deebo Samuel, and then I focused on getting Joe Mixon as well as Dameon Pierce. So again, the ratio I'm going with, out of the first 5 rounds, I'm investing in at least 4 running backs that I feel really secure in their ability to not only get volume, but to also be efficient with those touches. So that's why I ended up going with all these running backs. And then lastly, this other team, I actually ended up picking out of the 12th spot, and I was able to kick off the draft by drafting Josh Jacobs as well as Nick Chubb, and then getting Keenan Allen there with that 3rd round, and then rounding up my running backs with Kenneth Walker and James Conner. So again, showing you that I'm looking for a wide receiver that is going to get a lot of opportunities, that is also featured in a very strong passing offense. As you can see in these examples, I went with a 4-to-1 ratio when it came to running backs to wide receivers, and this actually helped me with being able to secure my running backs early. And from there, what I would do was I actually held out on getting a tight end until much later, and a position that that I did pivot to early on, of course, after getting a wide receiver, was going with the quarterback in around the 7th or 8th round. And typically someone that was available in that range was Justin Herbert or even Trevor Lawrence. And one little pro tip I'll give you, if you're looking to go with any kind of strategy, you want to see where you can leverage stacking. So in this case, being that I am going heavy with running back, if I'm going to get a wide receiver, I'm going to see if I can also get a quarterback, especially if they're one of the high level quarterbacks to be drafted in my team, so that way I can utilize them as a stack. If I drafted Christian Kirk, I would look to ideally get Trevor Lawrence, so then that way with the robust running back strategy, not only do I have my running backs in place, but I also have a pretty good benefit with drafting a wide receiver as well as his respective quarterback to really leverage the quarterback wide receiver stacking combination. And then one observation too I made when going with the robust running back strategy, if I'm going to be going for a quarterback, I would much rather put on a tight end. So I would actually wait until the 9th or 10th round to consider drafting a tight end. And actually, believe it or not, there's some pretty good tight ends still available in that range. And two that I specifically targeted was actually Pat Freiermuth as well as Evan Ingram. So not only was I able to average a pretty good score within these mock drafts, but it actually showed too that you can actually be successful by knowing when to draft certain players depending on the strategy that you are utilizing. Now that we've gone over this entire strategy and the kind of players that you want to utilize to be successful in the strategy, ultimately I would tend to shy away from this strategy because I prefer usually going with wide receivers, being that they tend to be more stable. And with running backs, as we're seeing right now with the market, they're so volatile, and a lot of it is because of the potential injury risk that they bring to the table. Man, that's why unfortunately we're seeing right now running backs such as Saquon Barkley, Josh Jacobs, and even Tony Pollard not really securing long-term contracts. And the main thing really is because there's a lot of injury risk attached to them. And that's why I would tend to shy away from the strategy. But this video does, of course, give you the opportunity to see how you can be successful in it despite all those risks. Now, if you're looking for more information on this strategy, there's a great piece by Geoff Ulrich, and I'm so sorry if I'm butchering that. He is from Fantasy Life. I'm going to be sourcing the link for his article below. It's a great piece on the robust running back strategy. It's more so related in the context of basketball leagues, but it also has great information if you are a player that typically is in redraft leagues. Hey guys, thank you so much for making it to the very end of this video. It means the world to me. If you got any value in this video, do me a solid, hit that like button, consider subscribing, and check out some of these other videos that can help you with being successful in fantasy football.